The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime hummed with tension as hundreds of alien delegates gathered for what would become the most important session in galactic history. Ambassador Kethver of the Zilithian Empire stood at the center podium, his tall crystalline form catching the artificial light that streamed down from the dome above. His blue-tinted features were set in an expression of righteous anger as he prepared to address the assembled representatives of 47 different species. Fellow delegates, Kethver began, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomatic tradition. We gather today because humanity has once again shown their true nature. They have broken the sacred Treaty of Kepler Station, the very document that allowed them to survive after their aggressive expansion 50 years ago. The chamber erupted in a symphony of alien sounds. The insectoid hive queen Zara clicked her mandibles in sharp disapproval, while the ethereal voidborn representative, known as Nexus 7, pulsed with waves of indignant energy. The reptilian saurian delegates hissed through their translator devices, and the Aquatic Oceanic Federation representatives created ripples of displeasure in their environmental suits. Kethver raised his hand for silence, and the chamber gradually quieted. The humans have established 3 new colonies beyond the boundaries set by the treaty. These colonies were built without proper authorization, without clearance through this council, and without regard for the careful balance we have maintained. For half a century, he activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy's current political map. The human territory appeared as a small cluster of systems near the galactic rim, clearly marked with the red boundaries established by the Treaty of Kepler Station. 3 new points of light blinked ominously beyond those boundaries, representing the illegal human colonies. New Haven, Mercy Station, and Haven's Rest, Kethver continued, pointing to each colony in turn. These represent a clear violation of Article 7 of the treaty, which states that humanity shall not expand beyond their designated systems without express permission from this council. The Saurian ambassador, a massive creature named Voshtak, rose from his seat. This is exactly what we predicted when we first encountered the humans. They are a chaotic species, driven by emotion rather than logic. They cannot be trusted to honor agreements. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Treaty of Kepler Station had been signed after what the aliens called the Soul Incident. When humanity had first made contact with the galaxy at large, the humans had been expanding rapidly, establishing colonies and making contact with other species without going through proper diplomatic channels. The Council had seen this as aggressive behavior and had moved to contain it. We showed them mercy, Kethver said, his voice growing harder. When we could have destroyed them entirely, we allowed them to keep their homeworld and 10 systems. We gave them a chance to prove they could be civilized members of the galactic community. But humans, as we have learned, cannot change their fundamental nature. What the Council delegates did not know, what their intelligence networks had failed to discover, was the true reason behind these new colonies. The humans had not established them for expansion or resource gathering. They had built them as refugee centers for alien populations that were dying from a plague that their own governments had abandoned them to face alone. 3 months earlier, human exploration vessels had detected distress signals from dying worlds. In the Outer Rim, the planets were inhabited by species that were not part of the Galactic Council, independent worlds that had chosen to remain neutral in galactic politics. A bioengineered plague had swept through their populations, killing millions and showing no signs of stopping. When these species had appealed to the Council for help, they had been told that resources were limited and that intervention would violate the Prime Directive of non-interference. In reality, the Council had calculated that these worlds held little strategic value and that saving them would cost more than they were worth. The humans had made a different calculation. Captain John Hayes of the exploration vessel UES Discovery had sent a message back to Earth Command that would change everything. "We have the medical technology to stop this plague," he had reported. "These people are dying and we can save them. The treaty says we cannot establish new colonies, but it does not say we cannot provide humanitarian aid." Earth Command had debated for less than an hour before approving the mission. 3 medical colonies had been established, staffed with humanity's best doctors and scientists. Within weeks, they had developed treatments that stopped the plague's spread and began healing the infected populations. Over 2 million alien refugees now lived on those worlds, their lives saved by human intervention. The colonies were not permanent settlements but temporary medical facilities that would be dismantled once the crisis passed. But the Galactic Council saw only the violation of their carefully crafted boundaries. "The time for warnings has passed," Kethver announced. "Humanity has shown that they cannot be trusted to honor agreements or respect the authority of this council. We have prepared an ultimatum that will be delivered to their government within the hour." The holographic display shifted to show the terms of the ultimatum. Humanity would have 72 hours to abandon the 3 illegal colonies and submit to enhanced monitoring by Council forces. Human ships would be required to carry Council observers on all missions beyond their home systems. Any future expansion would require approval from a special committee that would be established to oversee human activities. "And if they refuse?" asked the Oceanic Federation representative, her voice bubbling through the translation system. Kethver's crystalline features hardened. "Then we will implement severe sanctions. Economic isolation, travel restrictions, and if necessary, military intervention to ensure compliance." The vote was unanimous. 47 species agreed that humanity needed to be brought under tighter control. They had tried diplomacy, they had tried compromise, but the humans had proven that they could not be trusted to govern themselves responsibly. As the session ended, and the delegates began to file out of the chamber, none of them noticed the small probe that had been watching from the shadows near the ceiling. The device was smaller than a human thumb, invisible to their sensors. It had been recording everything that had been said. The probe transmitted its data to a relay station in deep space, which forwarded it to a human intelligence vessel waiting just outside the Nexus Prime system. Within minutes, the recording was on its way to Earth, where it would arrive just as the official ultimatum was being delivered. Humanity was about to learn that their attempt to save lives had been seen as an act of aggression. The galaxy's most powerful alliance was preparing to punish them for showing mercy to the dying. The careful balance of power that had existed for 50 years was about to be shattered, and neither side fully understood what was about to be unleashed. The age of human compliance was ending, and the Council had no idea what they had just awakened. Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars streak past as her ship traveled through hyperspace toward what might be humanity's final diplomatic mission. The Defiant was sleek and elegant, designed to look like a peaceful diplomatic vessel, but beneath its polished hull lay enough advanced technology to challenge any ship in the galaxy. The crew moved with quiet efficiency around her, each person aware that they were heading into a situation that could change everything. "Captain," called Communications Officer Jake Phillips from his station, "we're receiving the Council's formal ultimatum on all channels." Lisa nodded grimly. She had been expecting this message ever since the intelligence probe had transmitted the recording from the Council chamber. The ultimatum was being broadcast simultaneously to Earth, the 3 medical colonies, and every human vessel in space. The Council wanted to make sure their message could not be ignored or misunderstood. "Put it on the main screen," Lisa ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Kethver's crystalline features. His expression was cold and formal as he began to speak. "To the government of the United Earth Systems and all human colonial authorities, the Galactic Council has determined that your species has violated the Treaty of Kepler Station through the establishment of unauthorized colonies beyond your designated boundaries." The message continued with the Council's demands. Humanity had 72 hours to evacuate all personnel from New Haven, Mercy Station, and Haven's Rest. All 3 colonies were to be completely abandoned, with no equipment or structures left behind. Furthermore, humanity would submit to enhanced monitoring by Council forces, with observers placed on all human ships traveling beyond their home systems. Failure to comply with these terms will result in severe sanctions, Kethver concluded. economic isolation, travel restrictions, and if necessary, military intervention to ensure compliance. The Council has spoken. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Lisa could see the tension in her crew's faces. They all knew what abandoning those colonies would mean. Over 2 million alien refugees would be left to die from the plague that was still spreading through their populations. "Get me a secure channel to Earth Command," Lisa ordered, within minutes. Admiral Frank Collins appeared on the view screen. His weathered face showed the strain of the past few weeks, and his usually neat uniform looked rumpled from long hours of emergency meetings. Behind him, Lisa could see the bustling activity of the command center, with officers and analysts working frantically at their stations. "Captain Morgan," Collins said, his voice heavy with fatigue, "I trust you've received the Council's demands." "Yes, sir. They want us to abandon the medical colonies and submit to enhanced monitoring." "Sir, there are over 2 million refugees on those worlds. If we leave them now, the plague will kill them all within weeks." Collins rubbed his temples, a gesture that Lisa had seen him make often during their previous missions together. "I know exactly what it means, Captain. That's why the President and the Joint Chiefs have made our decision. We're not abandoning those people." Lisa felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had hoped that Earth would stand firm, but she also knew what defying the Council would mean. "What are our orders, sir?" "You're to proceed to Nexus Prime and deliver our response to the Council. We're withdrawing from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The Treaty of Kepler Station is null and void as far as we're concerned." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Withdrawing from the Council was something that had never been done before in galactic history. Every species that had been contacted by the Council had eventually joined, either willingly or through pressure. The idea of simply walking away was unprecedented. "Sir," Lisa said carefully, "the Council has military forces from 47 different species. If we withdraw, they'll see it as an act of rebellion. They could unite against us." Collins's expression hardened. "Let them try." "Captain, you're authorized to reveal Project Prometheus if the situation requires it. Command believes that once the Council understands our true capabilities, they'll think twice about military action." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Project Prometheus was humanity's deepest secret, something that only a handful of people in the entire government knew about. She had been briefed on it just before this mission, and the revelation had changed everything she thought she knew about human history and capabilities. "Understood, sir." "When do you want me to reveal the project?" "Use your judgment, Captain. If they threaten military action, if they refuse to listen to reason, or if you believe it's necessary to protect human lives, you have full authorization." "The President has personally approved this mission." The connection ended, leaving Lisa alone with her thoughts and the weight of what she had just been told. Around her, the bridge crew continued their duties, but she could see the questions in their eyes. They knew that something big was happening. Something that would change the relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy forever. "Jake," she called to her communications officer, "send a message to the Council. Tell them that a human diplomatic vessel is en route to Nexus Prime to deliver our official response to their ultimatum." "Should I mention that you're authorized to negotiate, Captain?" Lisa smiled grimly. "No, Jake. Tell them I'm coming to deliver our final answer. No negotiations, no compromises. They'll understand what that means." As the Defiant continued its journey through hyperspace, Lisa walked to her ready room and activated the secure terminal. The Project Prometheus files were classified at the highest levels, and accessing them required multiple security clearances and biometric scans. Even now, knowing what she knew, it was hard to believe that the information was real. The files contained evidence of something that would shake the foundations of galactic politics. Humanity was not the young, inexperienced species that the Council believed them to be. They were not newcomers to the galaxy who had only recently developed space travel. The truth was far more complex and far more dangerous for anyone who had underestimated human capabilities. Lisa closed the files and returned to the bridge. In a few hours, they would arrive at Nexus Prime, and she would walk into the council chamber to deliver news that would change everything. The council had given humanity an ultimatum, expecting them to submit like every other species had done before them. They were about to learn that humans were different. The age of council dominance was about to end, and Lisa Morgan was going to be the one to deliver that message. She only hoped that when the truth came out, the galaxy would be ready for what humanity really was. The Galactic Council had been in emergency session for 12 hours when the long-range sensors detected an approaching human vessel. The delegates had spent the entire night debating humanity's punishment, with most species calling for immediate military action if the ultimatum was refused. They expected to see a battered transport ship limping toward Nexus Prime, carrying human negotiators desperate to avoid conflict. Instead, the UES Defiant materialized from hyperspace with a precision that made several alien navigators gasp in surprise. The ship appeared exactly where it intended to be, with no drift or course corrections needed. Its hull gleamed with an almost mirror-like finish that seemed to absorb and redirect light in ways that defied the known physics of ship construction. "Nexus Prime Control," came a crisp transmission from the human vessel. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the United Earth Systems. I am here to deliver humanity's official response to the Council's ultimatum." Ambassador Kethver felt his crystalline features darken with annoyance. The human had said response, not acceptance or compliance. The wording suggested that humanity might actually be considering defiance, which would be unprecedented in galactic history. "Captain Morgan," Kethver replied through the communication system, "you were given clear terms. There is nothing to discuss or negotiate. Your species will comply with the Council's demands or face the consequences." There was a pause before the human captain responded, and when she did, her voice carried a tone that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Ambassador Kethver, I appreciate your position. However, I am not here to negotiate. I am here to deliver our final answer to your ultimatum." The word "final" sent a ripple of unease through the chamber. No species had ever spoken to the Council with such apparent confidence. The humans were a minor power with limited territory and resources. They should have been terrified of facing the combined might of 47 different species. The Defiant docked with the space station using movements that were so smooth and precise that they seemed almost choreographed. The ship's docking systems interfaced with the station's equipment perfectly, despite the fact that human technology was supposedly inferior to Council standards. Several technical officers noticed that the ship's energy signatures were unlike anything they had seen before, but they attributed it to human engineering quirks rather than advanced technology. Captain Lisa Morgan stepped off her ship and walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime with the confident stride of someone who held all the advantages. She was tall and composed, with steel-gray eyes that seemed to see through the elaborate pretenses of galactic diplomacy. Her uniform was simple but elegant, bearing the insignia of Earth's diplomatic corps and no unnecessary decorations. The alien guards who escorted her to the council chamber found themselves unconsciously matching her pace rather than setting their own. There was something about her presence that commanded respect, even from species that considered themselves superior to humans. She walked like someone who knew exactly where she was going and what she planned to do when she got there. When the massive doors to the council chamber opened, Lisa Morgan entered without hesitation. The chamber was designed to intimidate visitors, with its soaring ceiling and hundreds of alien delegates arranged in tiers that rose toward the dome above. Most species found their first visit to the chamber overwhelming, but the human captain seemed completely at ease. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space without any need for amplification, "I bring greetings from the United Earth Systems and our official response to your ultimatum." The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background hum of translation devices seemed to quiet as every delegate focused on the human standing alone in the center of the chamber. She looked small compared to the massive alien forms surrounding her, but her presence somehow filled the space. "Your species has violated the Treaty of Kepler Station," Kethfer interrupted, his voice echoing from the speaker system. You will comply with our terms or face severe consequences. There is no other option. Lisa Morgan smiled, and somehow that simple expression sent a chill through the assembled aliens. It was not the desperate smile of someone hoping for mercy, but the confident smile of someone who knew something that others did not. Ambassador Kethfer, she replied calmly, I understand your position perfectly. However, I must inform you that the United Earth Systems formally withdraws from the Galactic Council and renounces the Treaty of Kepler Station, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in shocked voices and alien exclamations. The sound was deafening as hundreds of delegates all tried to speak at once. Never in the Council's 1,000-year history had a species simply walked away from their authority. The very idea was so unprecedented that many delegates could not immediately process what they had heard. You cannot withdraw, Hive Queen Zara chittered, her compound eyes gleaming with anger. The treaty binds your species to this council. You are subject to galactic law whether you accept it or not. Actually, Lisa replied, her voice cutting through the noise without being raised, we have reviewed the treaty carefully, and we believe it was signed under false pretenses. We were led to believe that membership in the Council was voluntary and that all species were treated as equals under galactic law. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. We have since discovered that the Council operates more like a prison system, keeping younger species contained while the older ones exploit resources and expand their territories freely. The accusation sent another wave of angry responses through the chamber. Several delegates began shouting about human ingratitude and the benefits that council membership provided. But Lisa Morgan stood calmly in the center of the chaos, waiting for the noise to die down. Furthermore, she continued once the chamber had quieted, we have evidence that the council has systematically deceived member species about the true nature of galactic politics. The boundaries and restrictions you impose are not based on law or tradition, but on the desire to maintain control over potential rivals. Ambassador Kethfer felt a growing sense of unease. The human captain spoke with too much confidence as if she knew things that should have been impossible for her species to discover. You are making serious accusations without proof, he said. The Council has governed this galaxy for 1,000 years with wisdom and fairness. Lisa Morgan's smile widened. I have proof, Ambassador. And I think it's time the other species learned the truth about how the Council really operates. She reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small device that she activated with a simple gesture. The chamber's holographic systems responded, immediately displaying information that made several delegates gasp in recognition and fear. The holographic display that filled the center of the council chamber showed a map of the galaxy that was vastly different from the one the delegates were familiar with. Instead of the carefully balanced territories they had been shown for centuries, this map revealed the true extent of council expansion over the past 50 years. The older species had been quietly claiming vast regions of space while restricting younger species to small, designated areas. This is impossible, Nexus 7 pulsed with waves of confused energy. These territorial maps are classified at the highest levels. No species outside the Inner Council has access to this information. Lisa Morgan stood calmly in the center of the chaos, watching as delegates from dozens of species stared at the evidence of their own deception. Many of the smaller species were seeing for the first time how much territory the major powers had claimed, while they were told that expansion was carefully regulated. You're right, Lisa replied. These maps are classified. But humanity has ways of obtaining information that you haven't considered. We've been watching and learning for quite some time. The display shifted to show resource extraction operations throughout the galaxy. Massive mining complexes and energy collection stations operated in supposedly neutral space, all controlled by the Inner Council species. Meanwhile, younger species were told that resources were limited and that strict conservation measures were necessary. The Saurian Empire has expanded by 40% in the last decade. Lisa continued, pointing to the green areas on the map. The Zilithian territories have grown by 30%. The Oceanic Federation has claimed 12 new systems. All of this expansion happened while you told other species that the galaxy was reaching its carrying capacity. Voshtak, the massive Saurian ambassador, rose from his seat with a threatening hiss. These accusations are lies designed to create discord among the council members. Humanity seeks to divide us with false information. False information? Lisa activated another display, this one showing intercepted communications between council members. The messages were clearly authentic, bearing the encryption signatures and authentication codes that prove their origin. The first message was from Kethver to the Inner Council, dated just 3 months earlier. The human medical colonies present no immediate threat, but their humanitarian actions could set a dangerous precedent. Other species may begin to question why we do not provide similar aid to suffering populations. The second message was from the Oceanic Federation to the Hive Queen. We must act quickly to contain human expansion. If they continue to demonstrate that individual species can act independently for moral reasons, our control over the younger species will be compromised. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had not been concerned about treaty violations or illegal expansion. They had been worried that human compassion would inspire other species to act independently. You've been monitoring our private communications, Kethver said, his crystalline features showing the first signs of real fear. Such actions are acts of war under galactic law. Lisa's expression hardened. Galactic law, Ambassador? The same law that allowed you to abandon millions of dying refugees because saving them wasn't profitable? The same law that gives you the right to determine which species deserve to live and which can be left to die? She activated a new display, and this one made several delegates gasp in horror. The images showed the 3 worlds that humanity had established medical colonies on, but these images were from before the human intervention. Cities lay in ruins, bodies filled the streets, and the few survivors huddled in makeshift shelters as the plague consumed their populations. These are the people you abandoned, Lisa said, her voice carrying a cold anger that made even the largest delegates shift uncomfortably. 3 civilizations with rich cultures, advanced arts, and millions of innocent lives. When they begged for help, you calculated that they weren't worth saving. The next images showed the same worlds after human intervention. Clean medical facilities, recovered populations, and thriving communities that had been given a second chance at life. Children played in parks that had been built over former mass graves, and families reunited after being cured of the plague. 2 million lives saved, Lisa continued. 2 million people who are alive today because humanity chose to act when the Council chose to watch them die. And for this, you brand us as treaty violators and threaten us with war. Hive Queen Zara's mandibles clicked nervously. The resources required for such an operation would be enormous. How could a minor species like humanity afford to save so many lives? Lisa smiled, and this time her expression held a secret that made the air in the chamber feel heavy with anticipation. That brings us to the real reason I'm here today. You've, all been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding about what humanity really is. She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show star charts that were clearly ancient. The technology used to create them was advanced beyond anything currently available, and the scope of the territories shown dwarfed even the current council holdings. 10,000 years ago, Lisa began, there was a galactic confederation that spanned half the known galaxy. They called themselves the Terran Alliance, and they were the most advanced civilization this galaxy had ever seen. They had peaceful relationships with hundreds of species, technology that made your current capabilities look primitive, and a commitment to helping all sentient life flourish. The delegates stared at the ancient maps in stunned silence. The Terran Alliance territories were vast, but they were also carefully designed to allow other species room to grow and develop. Unlike the current council system, the Alliance seemed to have been based on cooperation rather than control. The Alliance had ships that could cross the galaxy in days, Lisa continued. They had medical technology that could cure any disease, terraforming equipment that could make any world habitable, and weapons that could defend against any threat. But most importantly, they had a philosophy that valued all life and sought to protect the weak rather than exploit them. Kethver found his voice, though it trembled slightly. What happened to this alliance? If they were so advanced, why have we never heard of them? Lisa's expression grew cold. Because your predecessors destroyed them. The Council's predecessor organization couldn't tolerate an independent power that refused to bow to their authority. They engineered a plague that targeted the Alliance's genetics, then launched a coordinated attack on their colonies while they were weakened by disease. The chamber erupted in denials and protests, but Lisa continued speaking over the noise. The survivors fled to a small world on the Galactic Rim, where they went into hiding among the primitive humans who had been left behind. They spent 10,000 years rebuilding, preparing, and waiting for the right moment to reclaim their place in the galaxy. She paused, letting the implications sink in. When you made first contact with us 50 years ago, you thought you were meeting a young species that had just discovered space travel. Instead, you were meeting the survivors of the greatest civilization this galaxy has ever known. And now, you've made the same mistake with us that your predecessors made with the Alliance. The silence in the chamber was deafening as the truth finally became clear. Humanity was not a minor species that could be bullied into submission. They were the inheritors of a legacy that predated the Council itself, and they had been preparing for this moment for 10,000 years. The Council chamber remained frozen in stunned silence as the weight of Lisa Morgan's revelation settled over the assembled delegates. The holographic displays continued to show evidence of the ancient Terran Alliance, their advanced technology, and the systematic destruction that had been carried out by the Council's predecessors 10,000 years ago. Ambassador Kethver was the first to find his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. Even if what you say is true, that was 10,000 years ago, we had nothing to do with those ancient crimes. The current Council cannot be held responsible for actions taken by civilizations that no longer exist. Lisa turned to face him directly, her steel-gray eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and determination. You're absolutely right, Ambassador. You personally had nothing to do with the destruction of the Terran Alliance. But you have maintained the exact same system that made that destruction possible. The same controlling structure, the same methods of dealing with independent species, and the same willingness to sacrifice innocent lives for political convenience. She gestured toward the displays showing the abandoned plague worlds. When those refugees begged for help, you could have saved them easily. The Council has medical technology that could have stopped the plague in weeks. Instead, you chose to let them die because helping them wouldn't benefit your political interests. You've become exactly what your predecessors were. The chamber's sensors suddenly detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout the Nexus Prime system. One by one, human ships materialized from what appeared to be some form of advanced stealth technology. The vessels were sleek and powerful, clearly built with technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. Impossible, Nexus 7 pulsed. With agitated energy? Our sensors show no ship movements in this system. How did so many vessels approach without detection? Lisa smiled grimly. The Terran Alliance developed stealth technology 10,000 years ago that your current sensors cannot detect. We've been here for hours, watching and waiting to see how this meeting would unfold. The tactical displays in the chamber showed the true scope of the human fleet. Hundreds of ships surrounded Nexus Prime, each one broadcasting energy signatures that indicated weapons and defensive systems far more advanced than anything in the Council's arsenal. The fleet had appeared, as if from nowhere, demonstrating capabilities that redefined what the delegates thought was possible. You're threatening us, Voshtak hissed, his reptilian features showing fear for the first time in his long diplomatic career. This is an act of war against the entire galactic community. No, Lisa replied calmly. This is an offer of choice. We could have revealed ourselves years ago and simply taken back what was stolen from us. We could have used our superior technology to conquer the galaxy and rule it as we see fit. Instead, We chose to give you the same opportunity for change that you denied to others. She activated a new holographic display that showed detailed technical specifications for advanced medical equipment, faster-than-light communication systems, and terraforming technology that could transform dead worlds into gardens. This is what we're offering to share with every species in the galaxy. Technology that could end hunger, cure diseases, and allow unlimited expansion without conflict over resources. The display shifted to show star charts marking hundreds of uninhabited worlds that could be made suitable for life. There's room in this galaxy for everyone to thrive. The artificial scarcity you've created to maintain control is unnecessary. We can show every species how to build their own advanced technology rather than depending on the Council for Basic Necessities. Hive Queen Zara's compound eyes reflected the holographic images as she processed the implications. What do you want in return for this technology? Freedom, Lisa replied simply. The Galactic Council will dissolve itself within 30 standard days. All species will be granted complete independence and the right to govern themselves without interference. The artificial boundaries and restrictions you've imposed will be removed, and every species will be free to expand and develop according to their own values. The chamber erupted in protests and angry voices. Several delegates began shouting about the chaos that would result from dismantling the Council's authority. Others demanded to know what right humanity had to dictate terms to civilizations that had existed for thousands of years, and if we refuse? Kethvar asked, his crystalline features reflecting the fear that was spreading through the chamber. Lisa's expression hardened as she gestured toward the tactical displays. Then we implement the Prometheus Protocol. Every species that has been oppressed by the Council will receive the technology and resources they need to defend themselves. The artificial scarcity you've used to maintain control will end immediately, and humanity will take its rightful place as the guardians of galactic freedom. The displays showed the locations of secret Council military bases, hidden weapons stockpiles, and classified research facilities that had been used to maintain control over member species. The humans had been watching and preparing for decades, gathering intelligence on every aspect of Council operations. You've been planning this for years, Nexus 7 observed, pulsing with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. We've been planning this for 10,000 years, Lisa corrected. Every generation of survivors passed down the knowledge and the mission. We watched as the Council repeated the same patterns of control and oppression that destroyed the Alliance. We waited for the right moment to offer you a choice between freedom and the consequences of continuing down the same path. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of different species. You have 30 minutes to make your decision. Accept our terms and work with us to build a truly free galaxy where every species can reach its full potential. Or refuse, and face the consequences of repeating the same mistakes that led to the destruction of the greatest civilization this galaxy has ever known. The holographic displays shifted one final time, showing images of what the galaxy could become. Worlds restored to life, species working together as equals, and technology shared freely to benefit all sentient life. It was a vision of hope and cooperation that stood in stark contrast to the fear and control that had defined galactic politics for centuries. The choice is yours, Lisa concluded, but understand that either way, the age of Council dominance is ending today. Humanity has returned to reclaim our place in the galaxy, and this time we will not be caught unprepared. The question is whether you'll join us in building something better, or whether you'll force us to tear down what you've built and start over. As the delegates began to murmur among themselves in desperate consultation, Lisa Morgan stood calmly in the center of the chamber. She had delivered humanity's final terms and revealed the truth that would change the galaxy forever. The survivors of the Terran Alliance had finally come home, and they were offering the galaxy one last chance to choose freedom over control. The next 30 minutes would determine whether that choice would be made willingly or through force.